Dr. Rigobuto, obviously worker safety is paramount out at Hanford, and one of the issues obviously is tank farm safety, particularly as it relates to vapors, and I know you're aware of the Savannah River National Laboratory report on tank vapors and worker exposure. And so I want to ask you about whether DOE will be taking action within the next year to provide protective equipment and detection devices for the workforce there.
Thank you for your question, Senator. We do share the fact that the #1 priority for the Department of Energy and for myself is the protection of the workers, followed by the protection of the facilities where they work. It is imperative that we provide an environment where the workers go home the same way they came in. I am aware of the vapor issue at Hanford, and it is a very important issue to me. I'm aware of the Savannah River report, and we are in the process of implementing the recommendations of the report. We're actually looking at ways to institutionalize many of these recommendations so that the lessons learned don't change on a day-to-day or as conditions in the tanks change. We look forward to bringing protection equipment to the workers, specifically PPE that is lighter, so that they allow the workers to work more efficiently and allow us to continue our retrievability schedule for the tanks, but we certainly will not do that unless we can do that safely. There are a number of new areas that we would like to explore in terms of worker protection, and that is what is called the science of safety, in which we actually bring, as part of our technology development program, new activities where we can actually enhance the quality of the workers as they conduct their day-to-day operations. So if confirmed, I look forward to continue to working with you and briefing you in subjects that will allow us to institutionalize worker safety protection throughout the complex, not just at Hanford.
Well, thank you for saying that you are implementing lighter protective equipment and detective devices, and so I'll look for a written response from you on exactly when you think the timing of that is, because we want that done as soon as possible. So if you could, I'm not going to pin you to a specific date, but if you would review this and give us that, because we are holding the Secretary accountable to this time frame. On the 324 building, it's one of the most significant cleanup projects left at Hanford due to its high level of radioactivity and proximity to the Columbia River. And I've been assured many times that this material is not seeped into the soil beneath, into the groundwater, and that we'll be able to get this cleanup done in time. But can you give me some specificity about the remediation on that contamination in the time frame in which that will happen?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Building 324 is definitely one of our buildings that is on the high-risk category, in addition to other facilities that I'm sure you're very familiar with, like the plutonium finishing plant and the sludge and K Basin. For the 325 building, by the end of fiscal year 16, we plan to finish the mock-up, develop the design of what needs to be done in order to excavate and remove the soil that is beneath the building. My understanding is that the plume has not moved and is not expected to move in a quickly matter, but the building right now is stable. Once we start excavation and removal of the contaminants, that is when we put the workers at risk. So the mock-up will serve the purpose of us to make sure that when we conduct these operations, we will actually do this in a safe manner. So by the end of fiscal year 16, we should have the design and the mock-up ready to implement this process.
And what do you think the rate of that plume traveling towards the soil is to reach a water source? What do you think the time frame on that is?
Currently, the scientists that we have from the national laboratories, including PNNL, have taken a look at the plume, and they're continually monitoring. If we don't disturb it, it will not be at a high rate. It will be in the order of years. But once we start disturbing the soil, then we do have to keep an active eye on the plume, because when you introduce new and foreign material, that's when the plume may travel. So we will have to do assessing the traveling of the plume as we do the cleanup simultaneously.
Isn't it true that we don't know how to treat some of the chemicals that are there, though?
I think the current process is there are some treatment methods, but they're not the best. So they are looking at alternatives for the treatment methods, and we will have good answers for you by the end of the calendar year.
Thank you. I'll have some follow-up on this. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Elkine, I wanted to touch base with you. Obviously, the members of the Northwest delegation care greatly about the Columbia River Treaty and making sure that that gets executed. Can you tell me what you think the Department of Energy can do specifically to make sure that that negotiations and the stakeholders' representation is done so that we get an administrative position so we can move forward on the negotiations?
Yes, thank you, Senator, for the question. I do very much understand the importance of this to your constituents and to others in the Northwest. As you, of course, will know, Bonneville Power Administration and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers serve as the so-called U.S. entity for the purposes of the treaty, and they've been working over the last couple of years to pull together a regional recommendation for how the treaty could look going forward. My team has been engaged in that conversation with regional stakeholders along with BPA and the Army Corps. We've done so because we understand the importance of moving this issue forward. We will continue to stay engaged in that fashion. In view of the very clear sense of urgency, we will do everything that we can to help facilitate forward motion. We understand that there are internal deliberations that are gaining momentum with our interagency partners. I realize that is not the answer that you are seeking, but I can tell you that if I am confirmed, this is an issue that will have my clear focus because I understand the importance of its being moved off of dead center. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think your leadership position in the Department of Energy to make sure that all the interest groups across various government agencies get together and get a final position, I think is critical in the timing of the negotiation. So we'll look forward to your leadership on that. Dr. Rigobuto, I wanted to go back to the 324 site for a second. Oh, actually, I have a couple questions, but on this issue of the chemicals, the waste that we're seeing, the contaminants that we don't know how to deal with, what is your solution for when should we get a timing for when we will know how to deal with those contaminants? Because we've had a kind of an open-ended time frame here where we've tried to figure out how to treat them, but at what point should we look for other plans if we don't know how to treat them, I guess is the question.
Thank you for your question, Senator. I personally will have to look a little bit more into the specifics of which is exactly the contaminants that the main concern is. And if confirmed, I look forward to coming back and briefing you on this area. But at this point, I don't have the details of which are the specific contaminants that are in question, but I look forward to catching up and coming back to you.
In your earlier remarks, you talked about that it was clear we didn't have some treatment capabilities or they weren't seeming to work. And so the question that I'm looking for certainty on is this kind of situation has existed for some while. So I think it's, I don't know, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong of the chemicals. But we have had this issue where we have for some time said we don't know how to treat it. So what I really want to understand is what is the plan for identifying treatment methods? If we come to a point after a year or two that we still don't have any treatment responses for those chemicals, what are our alternative plans? So I think we've gone for a long time with a certain level of uncertainty. And I think from your testimony and the answer to the previous question, you believe that we'll be able to protect this plume. But I think people want to know from a scientific perspective, if we can't, over the next few years, come up with a treatment process for these chemicals, what are the alternatives? And so if you could, for the record, give us answers on that, that would be great.
Yes, thank you, Senator. It really is an issue of efficiency of the process versus cost. You know, we do have the ability of remove chemicals pretty much from every surface. The question is, what is the cost and what is the efficiency of that process? And what seeks to look at in an industrial process such as this one is we need to balance the cost with the efficiency of the process. So certain activities that one can do, for example, in the pharmaceutical industry where it's only a small batch, 1 kilogram or 2 kilograms per year, is certainly not an efficient process to remove contaminants from soil. So that is really where we are in the process, but I'd be happy to, get back to you in
Well,
this
that's
issue.
why, and I appreciate that analysis, and I think, some of my colleagues' comments, they always surprise how much it costs to clean up Hanford. It is the largest cleanup site in the entire world, and its complexity dwarfs anything we've ever done at any other federal site, so, we need to continue to look to the science, to solving the problems. There are no shortcuts. But on this point, I think without a plan to clean up that material, I think I don't know if we're waiting, as you say. So the efficiency issue is counterbalanced by the issue that we're very concerned about groundwater contamination and the plume continuing to reach closer to the Columbia River. So what I would be more comfortable with is some sort of analysis by you and DOE. At what point do you just say, we don't know how to treat these chemicals, we're not going to have the answer in the next 3 years or 5 years, and the alternative cleanup process would look like this? So if you could give us something for the record on that, that would be great. And if I could just ask you about the waste treatment plant and its use of energy. Are you still considering liquid natural gas as a fuel source for the operation of the waste treatment plant?
Yes.
Okay. And is that going through an EIS, or when would that be done?
It was going through an EIS, but it was a slowdown because of the need to align the activities that we want to do with the Central Plateau in support of WTP. So yes, we will continue to look at replacing diesel with natural gas. We recognize the benefits to the environment and the sustainability to the site, but the EIS has slowed down until we can better align the two processes. Once that is aligned, we will continue the EIS and look forward to working with the
Is
community.
that this year, 2015?
I need to check when these projects are aligned, but it is our, intention to continue to do this, and we will definitely switch to natural gas.
Okay, thank you. And we'll look forward to that. Thank you very much.